oppositional stance. The point is, there are countless examples, and this video would be 10 hours long if we detailed all their stories. But for the sake of time, let's look at what contemporary ulama say, specifically the ulama that we know Brother Sajid and the Madakhila respect. Now, I will leave all the citations in the description below, but consider Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah. The Shaykh was explicitly asked about the hadith of advising rulers in private. In response, the Shaykh says very clearly, quote, "There is no doubt that denouncing evil is a duty for everyone who is able to do it, as Allah says, and let there be from you a nation inviting to all that is good, enjoining what is right, and forbidding what is wrong, and those will be the successful." There is also the ayah, "Cursed are those who disbelieved from the children of Israel through David and Jesus son of Mary for their disobedience and transgression. They did not forbid evil that they did." But we must know that these Islamic imperatives in such matters have different applications under different circumstances, and wisdom must be utilized. So, when to denounce publicly? Answer, when the interest of ridding evil and establishing good is served. Otherwise, if this interest cannot be served by public denunciation, it should be done privately. Basically, the Shaykh is saying exactly what the other ulama of the past said. Inkar can be verbal and public. If you can advise privately, go ahead and do that. That might be better in certain circumstances. But if the ultimate interests or the maslahah can be served through public inkar and private advice is not possible, then public inkar is permissible, and in some cases it might even be preferable. Another major scholar of the 20th century, Sheikh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, says the same thing in his fatwa. Quote, "The basic rule is that the one doing inkar has to consider what is the best option and what is going to get the most success. What works with one ruler might not work with another ruler. Therefore, the Muslim who is giving advice should consider the factors that will lead to success. If giving advice publicly is welcomed, as in the story of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, then that's fine. However, if the inkar is for sensitive matters and he fears that it won't be accepted from him, or there will be a bad consequence, then he should do what is best. If he were in a place or a country with someone and he feels that the best option is to do inkar of that person with his tongue in public, then he should do so. And he should take into account the best option, as people vary in these issues. Therefore, if he feels that it is not the best option to do it in public and that he can write or talk to him privately instead, then he should do so, because these matters differ based on everyone's circumstances. Also, this person should keep everything private as much as he can, give him a visit, write to him, and if he feels that the best thing to do is to do inkar publicly, and he says, so-and-so did such and such, yet the private advice did not work with him, and he felt that doing this in public is going to be useful, then he should do so. So Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah, is saying the exact same thing. There is a case-by-case basis to things, but sometimes public condemnation of the ruler may be necessary. Finally, there is Shaykh al-Albani, rahimahullah, who was asked about the hadith of advising the ruler in private and whether that hadith contradicts the story of Abu Sa'id radiallahu anhu, criticizing the governor in public. In response, Shaykh al-Albani says, "If the ruler openly violates the Sharia, then publicly denouncing him does not violate the Sharia, because those who hear about the violation from the ruler and his violation is a munkar or an evil, then that evil will enter into their hearts unless the scholar denounces that violation of the ruler." This is the apparent meaning of the hadith of Abu Sa'id. But this does not contradict the principle that was mentioned in the letter, i.e., about private advice. Not only does Shaykh al-Albani acknowledge that public criticism of rulers is allowed, it might even be necessary in order to prevent people from becoming misguided because the scholars are being silent in the face of public violations of the deen. So there is no contradiction with this and the hadith about advising the ruler in private. Because if that is the best option, then sure, go ahead and advise in private. But if it's not possible, or the chance of evil and misguidance spreading is greater, then public criticism is also allowed or may even be preferable. Sheikh Al-Albani actually practiced this himself. Towards the end of his life, the Sheikh lived in Jordan and he publicly criticized the Saudi government for their role in the Gulf War against Iraq.
وختاما هذا يذكرني بما كنت ذكرته في بعض أجوبتي أنني أقول أن جذب السعوديين، والحق حقا يقال، جذب السعوديين أو الحكومة السعودية للصليبيين إلى بلادهم وباختيارهم هو شر أكبر من اعتداء العراقيين على الكويت. هذا قلته أكثر من مرة، والآن أختم هذه الجلسة بهذه الكلمة. كما أن حزب البعث العراقي لا يمثل الشعب العراقي، كذلك الدولة السعودية لا تمثل الشعب السعودي بمن فيهم من آل العلم والفضل والصلاح والتقوى. فسياسة الدول أو الحكومات العربية اليوم لا تلتقي مع رغبات الشعوب المسلمة. وأقول مثالا لا يختلف فيه مشايخ السعوديين اليوم انتشار التماثيل والصور في الدوائر الحكومية، التي هذا الانتشار الذي ينافي دعوة التوحيد وينافي ما كان يقوله ولا يزال يقوله رجال التوحيد. فهذا كله يمثل أن الدولة في كل الشعوب الإسلامية لا تمثل شعوبها. لكن مع هذا أقول، مع أن جلب الصليبيين إلى البلاد السعودية شر من اعتداء حزب البعث على الكويت، فهذا الاعتداء من ثماره ذاك الجلب، أي اعتداء الحكومة العراقية على الكويت هي السبب في جلب هذه المصيبة الكبرى، وهي الاستعانة بالكفار وجلبهم إلى بلاد الإسلام. وكنت أقرب هذه الحقيقة بمثل عربي قديم: قال الحائط للوتد لم تشقني؟ قال سل من يدقني.
This is harsh public condemnation from Sheikh Al-Albani of a particular Muslim government. Sheikh Al-Albani didn't make this condemnation privately, nor did he do it in the presence of the ruler. He did it publicly, hundreds of miles away from the ruler he was criticizing. Does Sajid consider Sheikh Al-Albani a Khariji or an inciter of rebellion?
الآن تشارك السعودية في ضرب المسلمين في العراق بالقنابل المدمرة، تتعاون مع الأمريكان اليهود واليهود الذين استولوا على فلسطين بمساعدة البريطانيين والأمريكيين. أصبح من آثار استجلاب الكفار إلى بلاد السعودية أن يقاتل السعوديون معهم المسلمين، وهذه يعني مصيبة الجهر.
There are many other statements as well from all of these shuyukh where they harshly criticized and sometimes even made takfir of certain rulers, like the Ba'athist Arab dictators like Hafiz al-Assad. If we applied the Madkhali logic consistently, all these top ulama would be considered Khawarij. There is one other important thing that Madkhalis say, so we should preemptively refute it. They say you can't criticize the ruler if he is not physically present. If you want to do inkar, the ruler has to be there. As we saw though, this condition was not stipulated in the fatwa from any of the shuyukh we've mentioned. And as we saw, Sheikh Al-Albani himself was criticizing Saudi rulers publicly, but not in the presence of the rulers themselves. As a last resort, the Madkhalis will say, well, if you criticize the ruler when he's not present, that is backbiting. That's ghiba. This is just nonsense, pure and simple. Many of the Imams of the Salaf have noted that one of the well-known exceptions to the prohibition of backbiting is criticizing an evil ruler. A couple of brothers have compiled statements from the scholars of the Salaf, including Sufyan ibn Uyayna and Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, who said that there is nothing sinful about criticizing an oppressive ruler behind his back. So the summary of all this is that many scholars said there's no problem criticizing a ruler publicly or privately, in his presence or behind his back. This proves that when the Madkhalis say that all the scholars agree that you cannot publicly criticize the ruler, they are straight up lying. This is a blatant lie, and even their own shuyukh do not agree on that position. All they're doing is pretending like they have the same positions as major scholars like Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, Sheikh bin Baz, Sheikh Al-Albani, when in reality those ulama plus Imam Nawawi, Imam Ghazali, Ibn Taymiyyah, and many others fully contradict the Madkhali view, not only in their explicit teaching on the relevant hadith and in their fatwa, but also in their own public actions, criticizing the rulers of their time. Madkhalis have to pretend none of this material exists, and when you bring this textual and audio evidence to them, they quickly run away or make some excuse or some bizarre interpretation. This shows the utter lack of integrity and intellectual honesty from this group. So that's a lot of information, but let's zoom out a bit to get a better picture of the whole issue and put our finger on exactly the core problem that the Madkhalis have with me and